Hi, good evening. This is Gemma here. It's been a while since I did this, but um, I have a fairly urgent message that I wanted to share. This evening, I was speaking with Allison's best friend. For those of you who don't know Allison, Allison's my wife who passed away a few months ago. Well, she didn't pass away actually, she just simply transitioned to heaven. Um, but what it is we were having a conversation and talking about eternity and talking about um, our desire for the rapture, and we wish it was yesterday. Um, in part because we despair of this life, in part because we miss Allison. So, like I said, this is Allison's best friend I'm talking about here. For reasons of privacy, I won't mention her name, but she knows herself. Um, but we were talking about eternity and the rapture and so on, and one of the things I said was that the only reason why the rapture has not yet taken place is fundamentally because of the Lord's mercy. It is because there's still a number of people that need to be saved who are not yet saved. There are still people who have not yet heard the message or who have not yet taken to the message. If people understood how horrible hell is, and how horrible and how dark the times that are coming in terms of the Great Tribulation, the period of the Great Tribulation is, they might begin to understand a bit how that the Lord is simply having mercy on humanity and delaying. Interestingly, one of the things we then mentioned or we talked about was how that what is going on now is very similar to what happened in the days of Noah and in the days of Lot. And what I mean by that is, if you think about it, both of them were saved at the last possible moment, just before trouble was to strike. If you look at the case of Noah, Noah was given instructions to build the ark when he was about 500 years old. Well, um, by extension, those instructions may have actually come through his grandfather Enoch, but that's another story for another day. But fundamentally, at the age of about 500, God told Noah to build the ark. And at 600, he stepped into the ark. And 7 days later, not only were the doors slammed shut, the floods came. Water broke from the deep, the firmaments opened, and water came from the sky. And when I say the firmaments open, I'm not necessarily referring to the clouds. I'm not necessarily saying the clouds gave, precipitation or anything like that. I think something far bigger than that came from the sky, and a lot of water came from the ground. So there was flooding from below and from up top. But if in the context of 100 years, so for 100 years, Noah was building that ark. And in the context of that 100 years, for 7 days, God left the door open. God slammed the door shut himself, took Noah and his family inside. 7 days later, door shut, and the flood comes, and people are swept away and die. So God had mercy for humanity. He gave humanity long notice. He gave humanity about 100 years worth of notice in order to be saved. Only 8 people paid attention. Noah, his 3 sons, and their respective wives paid attention. If you look at the case of Lot, Lot was taken out of Sodom and Gomorrah at the last possible moment before judgment fell. In fact, the angels told him, "We can't do anything until you have left here," which kind of feels a lot like our situation today. Hell has not been let loose on earth. Hell has not been unleashed on earth simply because you and I, believers, are still here. But not only that, because of the mercy, the incredible, awesome mercy of God, because He is not willing for any to perish. Now, some people are of the view that you should not be too in your face with the gospel. You should not be too forceful with the gospel, especially when talking with unbelievers, whether they be loved ones or friends or colleagues and so on. And a friend of mine was kind of posed this statement, and her response was, "Well, if your friend was in a building in a burning building, would you mollycoddle the person or would you snatch the person out of the building? I paraphrase, which is interesting because I think maybe a couple years ago I was kind of asked the same question. My response was, if you saw a blind man walking toward a cliff, would you, in the name of politeness, in the name of political correctness, in the name of not wanting to offend, would you, try to talk him into going to the other side because the other side is more favorable, is more beneficial, there's more prosperity there, there's more blessing there, there's more goodness there, his heart would be filled better there? Or would you snatch him from the cliff because you simply wanted to save his life? I genuinely think that many people don't realize the horrors that Jesus saved us from. I genuinely think that many people don't realize how bad hell is, that it is so critical and so important to tell people, regardless of who gets miffed, regardless of who gets upset, regardless of, you know, we lose, regardless of whether we lose our jobs or not, regardless of how much persecution we face, nothing we could face in this life compares with the horror of hell. Hell is so bad that you would not want your worst enemy there, and not just there, but there for all eternity. Let that fact sink in for 1 second. Hell is such a horrible place that you would not want your worst enemy to be there for a second, talk much less of all eternity. I say this to a lot of us because we all have siblings, we have friends, we have colleagues, we have enemies, we have lovely neighbors and horrible neighbors who are unfortunately right now are not yet in the place where their names are written in the Lamb's Book of Life. And God is delaying because he wants as many as possible to be saved. Go read 2 Peter chapter 3. For the sake of time, I won't go into it heavily, but take some time and read 2 Peter 3. It bears out the things I'm saying. In fact, one of the things it talks about is how that, because they appears to be a delay, many people are scoffing and saying, where is the appearance of his coming? He promised a long time ago that he would be here, but he's not here. You people talk about the rapture, but the rapture has not yet happened. And here's what Peter said in response. He said, don't you realize that a day with the Lord is as 1,000 years, and 1,000 years as a day? Let us think in for 1 second. A day with the Lord is as 1,000 years. In other words, and this is based on the history outlined in the Bible, from the time Adam was placed on the planet Earth up until today is somewhere in the region of just shy of 6,000 years, give or take. But for God, for our Father in heaven, that's 6 days. 6 days. Now, think about 6 days for you. In the last 6 days, I went to work about 5 times. In the last 6 days, I read the Bible to my children maybe 5-6 times. In the last 6 days, they've gone to sleep 6 times. It doesn't feel that long ago. It really doesn't feel that long ago. So for us, thinking that 6,000 years is a very long time and where is the promise of his coming? For the Lord, it's like 6 sleeps, if that makes sense. Once upon a time, whenever we wanted to tell the children about something that they were excitedly looking forward to, we'd talk about counting the number of sleeps until that event came. And in the same way, if you think about it, let us assume that he sleeps, but the Bible says he neither slumbers nor sleeps. But let's just, for the sake of illustration, talk about him sleeping. God has had somewhere in the region of 5 sleeps up till now. A day with the Lord is as 1,000 years, and 1,000 years as a day. If you look in Acts chapter 2, verse 47, the Bible talks about the Lord adding to the church daily such as should be saved. Now, when you read that scripture the first time, the immediate thought that comes into your heart is that God has already designated those who will be saved and those who will not be saved, as though those who were to be saved did not have a choice, and those who were not saved did not have a choice. Well, that would be unscriptural, but I will not go into that deeply. The point I'm trying to make is this. when the Bible talks about those who should be saved, it is because God has declared the end from the beginning. God has declared the end from the beginning. God already knows every single person whose name is going to be written in the Lamb's Book of Life. He knows every single man, woman, and child whose name is written in the Lamb's Book of Life. No one has escaped him. Why? Because he's already there at the end. He was there at the beginning, he's here in the middle, and he's already there at the end. For everything that we're experiencing right now, all of our history, all of our present and our future to God is history. That's the reason why in the book of Revelation, God could show John what was going on. What many people don't realize is that in the book of Revelation, God did not just show John a vision. God took him to heaven and took him forward in time to the time when things were going to happen. Why? Because God is the one who inhabits eternity. God sits outside of time and inhabits eternity. And as a result of that, God already knows and has declared the end from the beginning. God has declared the end from the beginning. And as a result of that, every day that the rapture is not here is an act of God's mercy. Every day that the rapture has not yet taken place is an act of God's mercy. If you look in the book of Matthew, chapter 24, verses 21 to 22, in fact, I'll read what it says. I'll find it very quickly and read what it says. Matthew 24, 21 to 22. I'll read. This is the complete Jewish Bible translation, and I'll read from verse 21. Where are we now? It says, "For there will be trouble." This is the great tribulation now, or as the King James Version says, "For there will be great tribulation." So it says in the complete Jewish Bible, "For there will be trouble." For there will be trouble that, where is it now? For there will be trouble then worse than there has ever been from the beginning of the world until now, and there will be nothing like it again. This is Jesus here. This is Jesus here saying there will be trouble and worse, such as has not been from the beginning of the world until now. In other words, it is going to make the events of Noah and his time a walk in the park. It is going to make the occasion when the children of Israel saw the sons of Anak in Numbers 13 look like a walk in the park. All the troubles that happen in the Old Testament are going to look like nothing compared with the trouble that is coming. It says there will be nothing worse than that. It says there's a time of trouble coming and worse, for which nothing as bad as it has happened before. In fact, I'll read it properly. It says, "For there will be trouble then worse than there has ever been in the beginning of from the beginning of the world until now, and there shall be nothing like it again. Indeed," now look at verse 22. "Indeed, if the length of this time had not been limited, no one would survive." That's complete Jewish Bible saying in the KJV it says it this way. It says in fact, I think I wrote it. I'll just read it so that I don't misquote it. It says, I'll read from verse 21. It says, "For then shall be great tribulation, such as was not since the beginning of the world to this time, no, nor ever shall be, such as was not since the beginning of the world to this time, no, nor ever shall be." I'm repeating this. "And except those days should be shortened, there should no flesh be saved." Except those days should be shortened, there should no flesh be saved. In other words, no one would survive. If those days were not shortened, no one would survive. So it's an act of God's mercy. The rapture is an act of God's mercy, A, because you're taken to heaven, you get to escape what's going on. Yes, I use the word escape because many people think, oh, Christians who believe in the rapture are just being escapist. Well, here's the thing. If Jesus said in Luke 1:21-36, pray, in fact, let me read it. I think sometimes it's bad to read these things because when I quote it, sometimes people will be like, "Oh well, you're just giving your own slant on things." So let me read to you what Jesus said in Luke 21:36. Um, Luke chapter 1, 20. In fact, I will turn this around so that you can read this yourself. Okay, it's not turned around. Okay, forgive me. Luke 21, verse 36. Jesus said, um, he said in verse 34, but keep watch on yourselves, or your hearts will become dulled by carousing, drunkenness, and the worries of everyday living. And that day will be sprung upon you suddenly like a trap. For it will close in on everyone, no matter where they live, throughout the whole world. Stay alert, always praying that you shall have the strength to escape all the things that will happen and to stand in the presence of the Son of Man. This is Jesus. This is Jesus saying, pray that you'll be accounted worthy to escape. If Jesus is saying we should pray that we'll be accounted worthy to escape, who am I? Who am I to be talking about finding ways to survive by storing food, by storing ammo, by storing gold and silver? Now, I'm not saying those things are bad. But if you think you're going to survive the period of the Great Tribulation by arming the arm of the flesh, you are badly and grossly mistaken. And if you are following men who are telling you, well, go and get this, go and get that, hunker down, get your armor ready, be ready to take on the goons that are going to come during the period of Great Tribulation, you are badly mistaken about the period of Great Tribulation because you are assuming that the forces at war during the period of the Great Tribulation are human. You know, one of these days I'm going to go into Matthew 24 because I think many people don't realize how bad the things are going to be. You know, for example, I'll just give you a bit of a hint. For example, when the Bible talks about the stars falling from the sky and the powers of the heavens shall be shaken, do you think we're talking about physical elements in the sky? We're talking about fallen angels coming to this world. The Bible explains it properly in the book of Revelation, but it alludes to it very clearly in the book of Matthew 24. Now, time is already spent. I've already done 18 minutes here. But the point I'm trying to make is this. A day with the Lord is as 1,000 years, and 1,000 years as a day. Don't count his long suffering and his patience for weakness or for the Lord being slack concerning his promise. It is an act of mercy. It is an act of mercy on those who are saved so that they get their report cards better before the Lord. It is an act of mercy, especially for those who are not yet saved, that they may come to terms with the saving grace of the Lord. Because truth of the matter, truth be told, right? Our time is nearly up. And once our time is up, it's too late to make any decisions. I'll stop here because I've already gone far beyond my remit as far as speaking is concerned. But just remember this. Every day that we wait for the rapture is an act of God's mercy. Make the best use of the time you have left here. Make the best use of it. God bless you. Bye.